Welcome YouTubers, welcome to Projects with Bob. This is my 2003 Honda Civic and it's time to change the oil. A friend of mine actually gave me some Mobil 1 synthetic that works in this car for free. He got rid of his old car, he had the extra oil, so we're going to save money this week. Instead of me taking it down to oil stop, I'm going to do it myself. So the first thing I got to do is get the car a little higher so I can get a floor jack up underneath it. So I'm going to drive it up on a couple of 2x6s, and that'll give me enough clearance so I can get the floor jack up underneath it to jack it up and place jack stands underneath the car. Now that I have the car up on 2x6 blocks of wood, I can get the floor jack up underneath it and see what I'm doing. It's much easier to do it that way with these little cars. Every car has different points where you can jack them, and in particular this Honda has a nice solid frame right here. Don't particularly want to jack on the oil pan if you can avoid it, although some cars like Volkswagen Rabbits, that's the only way you can jack them up in the air easily. But on this car I've got a good cross member, so we're going to use the cross member to jack up the car with, and then we're going to put oil jack stands up underneath it, because you never want to work on a car sitting on a floor jack. The hydraulics can fail and it will crush you. So I've got it's a relatively small set of floor jacks, but it fits this car pretty well. We're going to go up underneath here, find a good solid point on the frame. You wouldn't want to put it up under here because you would damage the flooring. You want to find this frame structure point so it won't crush any of the sheet metal. I put a jack stand in the same place on the other side, so we have two jack stands supporting the car. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower this jack gently until the floor stands contact, and then I'm going to leave the jack down about an inch. That way it doesn't have far to fall if it slips. And I'm going to shake the car, make sure it's solid. Okay, so over the years people have at the oil change places have secured this, but they've lost the pin. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 pins that are missing. So what I'm going to do is, once I get this off of there, I'm going to take the pin out that would normally be here, and I'm going to go down to my local hardware or auto store. I'm going to buy new pins. They're not very expensive, and they will keep this from falling. So normally the way you would do this, you put a screwdriver in the slot, pop that out, and these pins will come out. If you look at it, this pin, it goes in and expands this, and when it comes out, it allows these to compress so you can actually pull the whole pin out. Now that we've got this dust cover off, we're going to go ahead and take the oil plug out. But first I'm going to loosen it. And we're going to pull the drain pan up underneath it. And I can see my hand is above it. So we're going to take it out, and I'm not going to get oil all over myself. We'll drain the oil out. And once that drains out, then we'll go up here and we'll remove the filter. We'll install a new filter in a minute. I'm going to remove the oil filter. They make a tool to go on the end of this if it's too tight. Fortunately mine is not that tight, so I'm actually able to take it off by hand. And that's the way it should go on. It should always go on by hand. Never wrench tight your oil filter. As soon as this drains out, then we'll put the new one on. Okay, now that we've got the oil filter loose and drained, we'll take it off and we'll quickly turn it upside down into the oil pan so we don't get oil all over the place. We'll let that continue to drain for a little bit, and then up here we're going to go ahead and just take a clean rag and we're just going to wipe the face of this to make sure we don't have any debris left from driving down the road or anything else, because we want this to be nice and clean. Okay, now that we've got the top off and we've got it unsealed, I'm going to put the top back on, turn it upside down, and get a little bit of oil in the cap, because we need to lube the oil O-ring, oil filter O-ring. So I've got a little bit of oil here in the cap, and the first thing we do is we put a thin layer of oil on this O-ring, and that allows us to turn it down tight, and it'll reduce the friction between the two surfaces. Hand tight is all you need. Now that we have the oil filter O-ring lubed, go ahead and spin it on by hand, and we'll just tighten it up by hand. No tighter than that, because then you won't be able to get it off. So we'll inspect the gasket on the drain plug. There are people that recommend you never reuse these, but I've found that as long as they're clean and decent, it's got a nice smooth surface on there, it's not nicked or have any cuts in it, it'll be good to go. The oil's pretty much stopped running out. Put the drain plug back in. And they do have a torque for these, but good and tight, but not over tight, because you don't want to strip the threads out of it. And that's good. Now we're going to open the hood and put the new oil in. The hood has a safety release up underneath it, and it's right here. So if your hood ever comes up, that will prevent it from flying up and hitting your windshield. It'll also keep you from opening the hood if you don't know where it is. So we're going to open up the oil fill spout. This particular car takes 0W20. And we're going to put about 3.8 quarts in there, because that's about the capacity of it. These containers here have marks on them. This says liters and that says quarts. And so we're going to want 1, 2, 3, about 3.8 quarts is going to be about right here. So I'll pour it in and check every once in a while by laying it down to see kind of where I am. I don't want to overfill it, because then that becomes a real problem. Okay, it's time to put the oil in. So I've got a funnel so I don't make a mess of myself, and we're just going to start pouring it in, and I'll check it every once in a while to kind of see where we're at. So we're at about 1 and a little bit. Two and a little bit. 3. 3 and a little less than a half. A little over a half. And 3.8. So we're going to stop right there. And just like the drain plug and the oil filter area, let's wipe any dust or dirt or debris away from that seal so we don't get it into the engine. We want things nice and clean if we can keep it that way. and put the oil cap back on, because it's a real mess if you don't. So we're going to do that, and now we have the new oil filter on, old oil is out, new oil is in. We're going to start it up and see if the oil light goes out. Every car has an oil light, so you want to make sure it's on when you first turn the key on. So this is your oil light. If you don't see that on, then either the bulb or the LED is burned out and you need to get that fixed, because you wouldn't know if you had low oil pressure. Now we're going to start the car and make sure the oil light goes out just like that. That means the filter is filled and the oil pump is pumping oil. We'll let it run for a minute, and then we'll shut it off and we'll check the oil level. Now that we've started the engine and run it for a few minutes, we want to make sure that there's no oil on the oil filter and there's no drips on the drain plug. So that looks good. We're ready to put the pan, or the air dust pan, back on to cover this area to keep dust and debris, help the aerodynamics of the car, etc. And then we'll lower the car back down so it's level, and we'll check the oil to make sure that it's full. So I went to my local auto parts store and I bought all new push rivets, and so we're going to reinstall this with all brand new rivets. You put it in, push, and click. We've got a second one here. Put it in, push, and click. And that way we have all brand new rivets. We'll go ahead and put all the rest of them in. The rivets that I used are Napa Bulk Amp part number 665-3272. They work just perfect for this oil pan. Even though it says Nissan, they fit my Honda quite well. Okay, it's time to let it back down, and we'll check the oil level once it's on level ground. So I know I'll put approximately the right amount of oil in it. It's just going to be whether I need to top it off or not. We're jacking it back at the same jack point. Make sure it's on there nice and stable. We'll jack it up off of the jack stands. Get the jack stands off of it, up from underneath it, and lower it back down on the wooden blocks. And then I can drive off the wooden blocks. And now that we're back on a level surface, I'm going to go ahead and pull the oil dipstick out, wipe it off, put it back in all the way down, and look at the oil level. I'm about 3/4 of the way up, so I need to add just a little bit more oil to get it full. And that's the end. Always wipe the dipstick and then put it back in and check it again, especially after the car has been running, because it can splash up on the dipstick and give you a false reading. So there we go, right at the full mark. And that'll be good for another 8,000 miles. I have 312,000 miles on this car, and it's because of maintenance like that done on a regular basis that we can get this kind of mileage out of these Hondas. If you take care of it, it will take care of you.